Hello and welcome to this tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to create a cardboard box. A very simple one, and this is a great tutorial for those who are just getting started with Blender or they used Blender in the past and they're a little bit rusty. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Now I'm using Blender 4.0, but you feel free to go to blender.org and to download, and you can get 4.2 if you want. And I'm going to be using something called PureRef for my references. You don't need a reference for this tutorial, but it's a good thing to always have when you're creating something, especially in 3D. Now, once you open Blender, you're going to get this one. We're going to create a new file using General. If you're completely new to Blender, the way you move is you drag around like this. Or you can use your middle mouse button, which is what I like to do. Holding shift and middle mouse like this to pan. Now I'm going to go ahead into preferences before we begin, and I'm going to install this reference add-on. Search image. This is the first time you're using Blender. You might have to enable add-ons. Just enable it. And then we're going to go ahead and enable this one. Import images as planes. Another thing I like to do is I like to have orbit around selection and depth. A thing that usually Blender artists do is delete a cube. I think it's a little bit off center. There's something about it, but regardless, let's just delete it with X. I'm also going to delete the rest of the scene. We can bring it back later if we want. One quick extra thing is if you want to have extra undo steps, I highly recommend it. Go into system and increase this number. Now, once our scene is clear, we're going to hit Shift A to now create a new cube. Yes, that's right. And I'm going to use the scale tool to get a shape that I like. Now, it's easy to just start creating now and don't care about references. A cardboard box is pretty simple, right? But sometimes even the most simplest items can be looking kind of off at times if we haven't used the proper reference. So what we're going to do is, if you have the add-on enabled, you can also just have a tab on your second monitor or just in your browser, find an image of what you're going to create. I'm going to find my reference that I created using PureRef. If you haven't used PureRef before, it's basically a fancy reference photo program. You can just drag images there and then you can just save it or export it. Now, I'm going to add my reference like this. It usually comes in kind of off center, so I'm going to hit N. And I'm going to make it 90 degrees, 0, and 90. You can use all these if you want, tab G or R or S. But I'm going to use the keybinds for the most part, so I'm going to use G, hold the middle mouse button and drag it. You can also use G and then X, and it will also snap to the axis. You can do this with the Z or the Y as well. And right click to cancel it. And I'm going to scale it like so. Now I don't want to misclick it while I'm making stuff, so I'm going to go ahead into restriction toggle and do it like this. This way I won't be able to misclick it. I'm going to look at my cube, and we could also use this to get the shape that we want. I'm pretty happy with this. If you want to go into orthographic mode, you can either click this or you can do middle mouse Alt. This makes it a little bit more accurate. You don't have to do it, but it's a neat way of making sure you're within boundaries sometimes. We're gonna go into edit mode like this, or hitting tab. So we're gonna hit N again to remove that and give us some more space. Now I'm gonna deselect by clicking away from it. And now we're gonna create a box. And not just a cube. Let's actually call it a box. I like to name all my creations to keep kind of things structured, and once you have a lot of items, it gets really confusing. Now I'm gonna hit 3 to get into face or polygon mode. Then I'm gonna hit I to inset it. Something like that. Kind of like you can see the black dotted line like this. I'm gonna do it again. And you can kind of get a feel for how it works. Now I did it twice. Be careful you don't hit it too many times, just Control Z if you do. There's also these kinds of buttons you can click instead of the keybinds. You'll find bevel, inset, extrude, and loop cut. Also knife. These are great tools you can use. Now I'm going to use the keybinds, so just watch this little thing if you get confused sometimes. I'm going to hit G, middle mouse button, and drag it down. You can also use move tool if you want. Now we don't know how far it goes, so we're going to go into X-ray mode. Now we're going to be able to see through the mesh. Something like that. You can see that if we go into, I'm going to hide this thing by hitting the I button. You can see it kind of tapers to the side like this, right? So what I'm going to do is, since I have the face selected, hit S to size it up. So it's kind of aligned. I don't have to worry about it being perfect. I think very rarely things in the real world are perfect, and sometimes it makes it easier to model when you have proper alignments, but there's ways to work around that, and it's good to be structured, but also not hinder yourself too much with it. I'm going to deselect, go out of X-ray mode, and back into viewport shading. Now, right, it's misclicked. Now we're going to go ahead and hit Shift and click on all these top edges like that. And I'm going to hit Extrude by hitting E and going up just a little bit. Be very careful you don't do it several times. But see, now I did it twice. And it looks like it's just once, but if I hit G to move, there's another one. So I'm just gonna hit Control Z. Then let's go into all these edges. Still in polygon mode. And I'm gonna go ahead and extrude it one more time. Now, what happens if I hit extrude? It doesn't do what we want to do. Get the reference back. We wanted to extrude out, right? And I could just do this. Extrude it, and then I did kind of size up. That looks kind of wrong because we want it to work individually. A way to work around this, or to do it properly, I'm going to do this to check. We're going to go and hold down extrude, and we're going to go into extrude individual. And instead of hitting E, we're just going to drag this little button now that we have the tool selected. There we go. Now we want it to go downwards, so I'm going to hit G, Z, and go down. Pretty neat, pretty neat. I'm going to also rotate And instead of hitting R, which will start doing this kind of thing, I'm going to go ahead and click it. So it only affects this face. I believe it's locally. Don't quote me on that. There's something called like a global, local, transformation, all that kind of thing. And I think the tool, the way it works is if you use the keybind, it will use the kind of like the global one. And if you click it, it's going to use the local one. Now, don't quote me on that. That's how I understand the tool to work. If you look in settings, you can find the definite answer for that. But now we have our box, and it looks pretty good. Looks pretty good, but it's kind of simple. It has a little bit of a sharp edges, so I want to smoothen out the edges a little bit. Things in real life does not have these kind of sharp edges most of the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into edge mode, give it 2 if I want, then 8 to select everything. And I'm going to do, instead of clicking there, I'm going to do Control B and drag a little bit. If it goes really quickly, you can do the thing, then hold Shift afterwards, and it will go much slower. Just to reset, I'm kind of like releasing the shift. And something like that. That looks pretty good. I use tab to go into object mode to kind of look how it's looking. It's looking good. Let's go into polygon mode. And let's push these a little bit backwards. I want to move several of them at once, but I kind of don't want it to do this kind of thing. Right? So what we can do is we can use proportional editing. That's going to kind of like soft select everything. And in G, scroll with my mouse, and I'm going to see a circle that's going to tell me how much will be affected. So I can start moving. I'm going to click. I can still do the thing if I want after I clicked, but it's going to remove the circle. So I'm going to do that with all these edges. That's going to make it uneven, but that's fine, because it's going to be somewhat fixed once I do it around all the edges. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Don't worry about this. No mistakes, only happy accidents, like Bob Ross says. Looks good. Now, if I want kind of like a smooth transition, Boxes doesn't always have that, but if I want it, I could do something called shade smooth or auto smooth. We go into data, and I believe it's normals. You see, this is the same thing. We can choose the amount of angles, it will start to smooth. So anything above, I believe this angle will be smooth. There you go. You can also hover over something and it will tell you what it does. Pretty nifty. And now we have our box. Pretty cool. Good job. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you found something helpful. Let me know what you think in the comments, and leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you want to see more, and see you in the next one. Bye. Oh, and before I forget, if you want to see the next video where I start to tell you how you can texture it, and we can actually give it some color like this, and then especially leave a like and let me know. Okay. That's pretty much it. You have created your first box. Alright, see you in the next one.